Hey guys, iRacer here, thanks for joining me. Today's video is for anybody that has Thrustmaster TLCM pedals and wants to get maximum performance. They're certainly not set up for maximum performance out of the box, and you may be finding yourself with a bit of a dead zone on the travel. I especially wanted to put this video together for anybody that was in the middle of racing and practicing all the time, and they don't have basically the time to stuff around. They just want to get back to practice and they want maximum performance out of their pedals so that they can get used to them and get back up to speed. Now I've got all the parts laid out here. I just wanted to quickly go through them because I think it's important. In this video I'm firstly going to show you how to set up the physical load cell. Everything that I tell you in this video will only be relevant to getting the maximum performance out of these pedals. That being said, once you do know what is relevant to maximum performance, you'll also know everything else as well. Mainly the idea is to give you a proper real understanding of how this load cell works with the spring assembly and also with the calibration tool online. So we're going to go ahead, set up the physical load cell, and then once that's done, then we're going to go over and set up the calibration tool, the settings. For anybody at that point that wants to get back to practice, you can. Otherwise, if you want to hang around, I will do a review on the pedal set and I'll also give you my recommendations. And in the meantime, I just want to show you the parts. Now, first of all, I just wanted to, before we have a look at the parts, I wanted to just show you this one here first of all, to see whether that there is, yeah, okay. This is what they call the preload spring. And that there is actually the softest spring in the assembly, and you will be using this spring. This is not the softest spring, and you probably won't be using it. It's the softest spring of its kind. But yeah, if you want to set this up for maximum performance, you won't be using this spring. Just very quickly, for anybody that's fancy footing, like hill towing, and they have themselves a shifter, then you're probably going to want to put that on your brake for obvious reasons. So the brake is a little bit more forward because they are flush out of the box for F1 style. Okay, so like I said, this spring you probably won't use it. These spaces are actually for this spring and these two springs. As you can see, they've got some ridges going around on the center there, and that is to accommodate for the wider spring. So there's not much play. There is a little bit of play, but not much. So yeah, like I say, I mean, you want to set this up for max performance, so you won't be needing these. You won't be needing these. We'll just be concentrating on these. And the reason why is because the red springs, yes, they are the stiffest. I think they're about 30 pounds, I'm not sure. But they're going to give you the maximum control that you need over your load cell. So that when you want to just push on it for a little bit of feel, these are the springs that are going to do it. You know, when you're angling or when you are trail braking. If you want to go a quarter braking, half braking, full braking, and then later we'll talk about whether or not you want maximum braking capacity before the full travel of your brake. So we'll be using these two parts as well. That is the boot or the sleeve. Now, these washers are quite important. And all the videos that I've watched, there's only seemingly one guy that gets it right, and that's Barry Rowlands on Sim Racing Garage. Everybody else is telling me, if they bother to mention these at all, they're telling me to use these to bolt your pedal set to your pedal deck, and that is just not right. These are actually crucial. And the reason why I say that is because this here is going to give you nothing more and nothing less than a dead zone, guys. It's that soft. Let's set up the load cell. Right, so the load cell, obviously right at the bottom. We'll start with the red spring straight on there, and from there we want to go with marked red spacer. and that will go seemingly upside down, so it fits in there nicely into the spring there. We've got our washers. Now you can choose to put less on if you want, and I did start with 3 and ended up putting them all on because that's how many it takes to stop the load spring from moving. You see that load spring will sit in there in that ridge of that spacer just nicely there. Now it virtually doesn't close up anymore by the time you get the other spacer on there, which we will do now. That fits in there nicely, so that you can see is just, it does actually, there is a little bit there, you don't notice it though. But I had a full dead zone no matter which way I calibrated it on the calibration tool. Now I don't. Seemingly you need to have fairly stiff springs on that load cell in order to get it work properly and have total adjustability to it. Go ahead and put that other spring on. The boot. Now I should mention also, I suppose, that it is a 100 kilo load cell. That all fits in there nicely. So that there spring, or load cell, preload spring, sorry, really just now is there to hold everything in. Yeah, it virtually doesn't move. You don't notice it. Okay, now I'll just take that out. Do that by pressing down on that thing basically, and we'll take those washers out, put it all back in again. Okay, now you see that we've got that much, and I can show you on the calibration tool. I mean, that won't even register on the in-game meter on Gran Turismo Sport. Now the reason why is because that load cell can't be calibrated for 2 different spring settings. I mean, if it's going to be calibrated to stiff springs like this, it's not going to notice this. This really does seem to be way too soft to do any kind of calibrating to that load cell at all, so that's the reason why. I think understanding is the best thing you've got going here. Okay, once you have that information, you know how to basically tune this for any game, I would think. Make sure it all sits down in there nicely. Don't need it to be reseating itself later when we're driving. I'm trying not to miss out any information here so that you have everything. Alright, so that's set up on the physical load cell. That is awesome, but don't run away just yet. Get all excited and wanting to go fast, because until you calibrate it correctly with the calibration tool, you're not going to get the speed that you really want out of this, and that will help with the last part of understanding what's going on here. Alright, so we want the calibration tool, and I have it here already on my screen as an app, but I'll just show you quickly. I've got it typed in, T-LCM calibration tool. Make sure you've got the right website. See it here. Click on that one, and that where is it? Pedals, T-LCM pedals, calibration software. Then the software itself, calibration software, and of course I've already downloaded it, so I already have it, but that's the one. We'll go ahead and clear that off, open that one up. Now we need to plug in the USB provided cable, which Looks like that there, guys. And we'll go ahead and plug that into your pedal set at the front, and obviously plug the USB into your PC. For those of you that are wondering that are on console, you calibrate the settings on the pedals on the PC, and then you bring it back and plug it back into your console, and obviously the pedals have some form of software because the settings are saved on the pedals. Okay, so that was one thing that I was wondering about. Alright, so I'll just quickly plug this in. Okay, pedals are plugged. Now we can, hang on, I'll just move this over here. Now we can click on this one and they'll show up straight away. Okay, now they showed up on my other screen. So the main thing that we really want to be looking at here is the brakes, obviously. Now this here and this here are obviously your clutch and your accelerator. Now you can decide what you want to do there, but by me showing you what to do with this, you'll know anyway. Now this here is your dead zone, and what I'd suggest for this is the weight of your foot. Now that there is exactly the weight of my foot. I don't want to change that because it took me quite some time to get it right. Because what I found is that there's you and the weight of your foot while you're adjusting this damn thing, and then there's you and the weight of your foot when you're relaxed in your race position. So with that there, that's quite important. You want to get that right. You don't want to have to be worrying about that when you're racing, so that you've only got to just breathe on the damn thing and it starts to register on the game meter and starts pulling up on you. Now this slide here, I don't want to move it either because I've spent quite some time adjusting that. This, I guess you could say, is adjusted for GT Sport using F1 style braking and accelerating with no clutch. We drive group 1s, 2s, 3s and 4s, obviously no clutch. And basically I've got it set there so that I've only got to go 3/4 travel, like physical travel on the brake, and I'll show you in a minute, in order to get maximum braking capacity. And then if I want to push down on it harder, I've got extra to make sure that I'm getting everything I need. And yeah, it does seem to pull up very well, I will say. I should do a video on whether brake load cells actually make you faster or give you better braking. Okay, so if you're going to bring this slide here to the right, you're making it less sensitive. Now, as I mentioned earlier about the heel towing fancy foot action with your shifter, you're probably going to want to bring it further. I would imagine on GT Sport that I would want to bring that probably to about here, so I've got to push the brake almost all the way down before it gives me full brake capacity. That being said, if you bring this slide back this way, obviously you're making it more and more sensitive, so the less travel, the less sensitivity you'll have as well, as far as your trail braking and angling and stuff like that. Like I say, this is where I've got it here for GT Sport, but as long as you know that this makes the load cell more sensitive, this makes the load cell less sensitive to the right. As you can see, I've got mine about 3/4 of the way. So once again, if you're going to the right, if you bring this slide right over here, you're making the load cell less sensitive. Okay, so you can see my pedals there. I'm only just touching them and it's registering, so I got the weight of my foot on there. Now I can just touch that, so I can just get a little bit. You can see how sensitive they are. And if I just want to feel a little bit, so I can go halfway to half, or anywhere exactly to half. And these are with the red springs, remember. Go a little bit further, and there it is. So let's see exactly how far down I've got that to exactly there. Now I'll show you the rest of the travel. Now that's all the way down. So I'm able to get maximum capacity about there, and then I can go and really stand on it from there and get every little bit out of it. So that pretty much completes that in-car test. Now, so